Gopi Janava Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Kunja Bihari Radha Kunja Bihari Hari Jai Jagannath, Jai Jagannath, Jai Baladev, Mai Subhadra. Jaya Srinathaji, Jai Balagopal, Jai Srinathaji, Jai Giri Govardhan. Jaya Gaurani Jai, Jaya Gaurani Jai, Jaya Gaurani Jai, Jaya Gaurani Jai. Prabhupada, 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 Jai Srila Prabhupada. Jai Jai Gurudev, 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 Jai Jai Gurudev. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrani Vijaya. Astotra Satashi Shimar's Divine Grace, founder of Iskana Bhaichar, Nadavinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. Pratara Shrimadbhagavatam Ki. Their most merciful Lordship Shri Shri Kunja Vihari Ki. Shri Jagannath, Shri Baladev, Mai Subhadra Ki. Shri Nataji, Shri Balagopal Ki Jai. Shri Gauranitai Ki Jai. Nitai Gopri. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the lotus feet of Shishi Guru Gauranga. We are reading from Shrimadbhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 10, Text 13. Sarve Te Nimise Aksais Sarve Te Nimise Aksais Tam Anu Druta Chetasaha Tan Anu Druta Chetasaha Vikshanta Sneha Sambadha Vikshanta Sneha Sambadha Vicharas Tatra Ha Vichelus Tatra Ha Sarvete nimiserakshais Tamanudruta cetasa Vikshanta sneha sambadha Vichelus tatra tatraha Sarvete nimiserakshais Tamanudruta cetasa Vikshanta sneha sambadha Vichelus tatra tatraha Krishna
Sarvete nimisherakshais
Sarvete nimiserakshais Tamanudruta cetasa Vikshanta sneha sambadha Vichelus tatra tatraha Sarvete nimiserakshais Tamanudruta cetasa Vikshanta sneha sambadha Vichelus tatra tatraha Sarvate nimiserakshais Tamanudruta cetasa Vikshanta sneha sambadha Vichelus tatra tatraha Sarve all te they animisai without twinkling of the eyes akshay by the eye tamanu after him druta cetasa melted heart vikshanta looking upon him sneha sambadha bound by pure affection Vishalu began to move tatra tatra here and there ha so they did Sarvete nimiserakshais tamanu druta cetasa Vikshanta sneha sambadha Vichelus tatra tatraha. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace of Acharnadavinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. All their hearts were melting for him on the pot of attraction. They looked at him without blinking their eyes, and they moved hither and thither in perplexity. Please repeat. All their hearts were melting for him.
All their hearts melting for him.
On the pot of attraction. They looked at him without blinking their eyes, and they moved hither and thither in perplexity. All their hearts were melting for him on the pot of attraction. They looked at him without blinking their eyes, and they moved hither and thither in perplexity. Purport by His Divine Grace of Acharnadavinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Krishna is naturally attractive for all living beings because He's the chief eternal amongst all eternals. He alone is the maintainer of the many eternals. This is stated in the Katha Upanishad, and thus one can obtain permanent peace and prosperity by removal of one's eternal relation with Him, by revival. Sorry, you've already been removed from that, that's why we're here. By revival of one's eternal relation with Him, now forgotten under the spell of Maya, the illusory energy of the Lord. Once this relation is slightly revived, the conditioned soul at once becomes freed from the illusion of material energy and becomes mad after the association of the Lord. This association is made possible not only by personal contact with the Lord, but also by association with His name, fame, form, and quality. Shrimadbhagavatam trains the conditioned soul to this stage of perfection by submissive hearing from the pure devotee. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshusrimilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. So I believe this is still, that we are here because Krishna has left for Dwarka, right? Krishna is going to Dwarka. And so they are feeling perplexed. We're seeing in this as well now that this relationship, that the very personal association of Krishna is being experienced by these devotees in the separation. The purport is revealing to us that this same experience through chanting is available to us. It's non-different. And so we may look at the time we're living in as a time in which the earth is going through a period of absence of the Lord's very presence, but He's not actually absent. In the presence of His name, He's never absent. And so He is inhabiting every even atom. Let's see, here in Devotional Service, chapter 12, one who is not envious, but is a kind friend to all living entities, who does not think himself a proprietor and is free from false ego, who is equal in both happiness and distress, who is tolerant, always satisfied, self-controlled, and engaged in devotional service with determination, his mind and intelligence fixed on me, such a devotee of mine is very dear to me. So these are examples also. All these devotees that are feeling separation from Krishna when He's going to Dwarka, they are very dear devotees of Krishna. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, nor is he envious. A pure devotee is never disturbed in any circumstances, nor is he envious of anyone, nor does a devotee become his enemy's enemy. He thinks this person is acting as my enemy due to my own past misdeeds. You see, this is the mentality that is being given to us that we should have. This is the mentality. We have the ability, through the words of Krishna, to change enemies into friends. This is what Haridas Thakur did as he was dragged through the streets and as he preached to those that were beating him in the marketplace. Then, through their reasoning with him, he made them friendly towards him. And then they were pleading with him because he wasn't dying. He was supposed to be beaten to death, but he wasn't dying. So as they discussed what punishment they were going to get because they hadn't they hadn't sufficiently punished him, he started feeling compassion for them. And this compassion is very powerful when you start feeling, especially empathy, where you're sympathizing for the suffering of another human being, and you're expressing that to them. And it's just a natural response, irregardless of the position they've put themselves in before. Now that they are hearing your love, your compassion, your empathy for them, it changes their way of looking at you. So this that we see as that which is keeping us bound to the material world in the form of false ego, this ahankar, I, me, and mine. Ultimately, in the minds of the gopis, that same place that we put I, me, and mine with a false ego, they put Krishna. But that doesn't mean that they're thinking of themselves as Krishna, but they're giving the thought about Krishna as more important than the thought about themselves. The thought of Krishna's well-being becomes more important in their minds than their own well-being. See, this is what we see as well in the life of Haridas, that even though he was being beaten, whipped, much like Christ was, he went through 22 marketplaces being whipped like that. And still, his feelings was of compassionate nature towards those who were beating him. This is just a profound thing to think about. This is like completely contrary to the ways of the world, isn't it? Who in their conscious way of thinking, normally being beaten by someone is feeling sorrow and sympathy towards the person who's beating them. But it is because to a devotee, and this verse brings it out, this purport brings it out, who is thinking, well, Krishna is letting this soul take out my past karma from me. So in effect, he's performing devotional service in the mind of the devotee. The devotee seeing everybody as servant of Krishna. The bugs, they're eating what human beings leave as waste. Everything is made for the purpose that it's fulfilling. But we don't see everything like that normally. We see things, how they affect us personally, and then make the determination in our minds, what is right, what is wrong, how I should act towards others. And when it is all based upon the false ego. Now, this false ego, this same false ego, we were discussing the other day in Judaism. The name of God was believed to be of such nature. It was so sacred, it could only be spoken by a priest in the temple once a year.
Once a year?
Once a year. But that same name is accredited in the Bible by being described by God himself as being the name he wanted to be recognized by Pharaoh at the time, who was a king and a ruling tyrant type king who had slaves, right? But now as we talk about this concept of the gopis having Krishna in that place in their minds that all other human beings are putting themselves. We want to know the comfort of that being. We want to know the nourishment that being is getting. We want to know that everything is arranged so that they're happy and their dress is right and their food, they have enough food. All these things that we put for ourselves, the gopis put for Krishna, right? Now that same I, me, and mine that is being revealed by the statement told to be given by God, to give as his name, reveals to us also that in Judaism is that concept that the false ego of humanity is saying that I, me, and mine is who I am solely, and I have to take care of I, me, and mine. But in place of that, we should in our consciousness be holding that the Supreme Person from whom all life comes from, we have come from. And so the one from whom we have come from for the pleasure of. In other words, we are made for Krishna's pleasure, not for our pleasure. And so this is the concept being revealed in the nature of importance that the soul holds God in. So most people you will talk to who are holding a job or a profession or have a career, they would themselves, in most cases, put themselves above everything else in life, their existence above everything else. If we are not alive, our struggle and our struggle to live and remain alive is that keeps us going. But if we take into the concept of our consciousness that God is in control of everything, and we are fulfilling his ultimately eternal purpose, then that gives us a completely different perspective on the self itself and the viewpoint we have towards it. Because now, if I am surrendering to the power and the forces of the Supreme Person, I'm no longer limited to my own abilities. Now I'm giving myself over to one who is more powerful than anybody, more powerful in all and in control of all the laws, which without the study of Bhagavatam, the leaders of the world are living in confusion because they do not know the laws of humankind. These are the laws for human beings to be guided by. The laws that human beings are making amongst themselves, in many cases, are profoundly in error. And in many cases are sometimes leading other human beings to live in such a way to cause them to experience extreme suffering. We're living in a time in which there is probably more suffering going on in the world than there actually is. The kind of experience of consciousness that human beings are supposed to be having. We are put in a form that at the present moment seems to be the most advanced form of life on the planet. But in the universal perspective, the human being on this planet Earth is very low on the chart of evolutionary development of the soul. All human beings are finding themselves dependent upon one another, dependent upon other forms of life, dependent on so many things, just for the continuance of their life. You can go outside and be exposed to the cold and end your existence just by not having cover from the cold. So all these things we find ourselves so dependent on. Now, being put in that situation is the fault of our own consciousness that has put us into these situations of dependence upon things besides Krishna. Because we want to show ourselves independent of God. So that puts us into this environment in which we believe ourselves to be capable of being independent of God. We are taught by teachers in the highest echelons of our society, considered to be the most advanced people there are, and they have no conceptualization in their minds of the eternal nature of the self. And without that, that is the beginning of knowledge. And without that, everything else that stems from man's own concoctions will only lead to suffering. Only going, the end of that is all suffering in ignorance. We have experience enough from Bhagavatam to learn by the mistakes of others and to live a perfect life, which we see by example in Srila Prabhupada's expression of his love for Krishna through his whole life. So now we have the opportunity to take these teachings and apply them. But most people in the world who are living bound by their own oaths to the people they are working for, the contracts they have made with people, their minds are so engulfed with everything in this world that they have to pay attention to just to continue to exist. Isn't it? Working to exist, aren't they? All this pleasure looked at as something to be gained by wealth and all this other stuff. It's all hard labor. Slavery, it's a form of slavery. Because people, you will ask them, who have their job, that job is everything. Without the job, they feel lost. I wouldn't feel lost. Well, I don't feel lost. I don't have a job and I don't feel lost. But I do have responsibilities and I have service. But it is a voluntary service. People would think, well, if you just volunteer your whole life away, you never get anything, you'll never have anything at the end of life. But that's without knowledge of the laws of karma. I'm thinking today, our president just named what used to be the defense. Because what is it?
Department of War.
War, yes, Department of War instead of the Department of Defense. And there's a big difference, actually. But war is dealing with both aspects. And defense is dealing specifically with only responding when somebody attacks. Yeah. You see, this is a justification within your home. And in the public as well. You are not justified to bring pain upon any other living being unless an equal pain is brought upon you. So this is based on the idea of defending ourselves from outside forces that are trying to stop us from performing our functions in life. Now, for the most part, if we're all performing functions that are beneficial for humankind, then anyone stopping us is going against their own well-being. That's what karma reveals as well. And this is why, in order to be deterred from that, they have to, it takes 7 times. Just like when you hear a truth for the first time, it takes 3 times for you hearing it to absorb the substance of the meaning of it. And we do that, and I've noticed when giving classes, I tell people things, and just exactly what I told them, they still do the same thing. Still do the same thing. These books should never be put on a place where people sit, nor the pictures. And I have spoken that directly to someone who did that, and still they do that. So it is the conditioning that we're being given now to train our minds when absolute truth is being spoken, to hear and be open to the meanings fully. So a devotee is training himself by chanting to hear intentively. This is to a great extent what a lot of human beings are experiencing as problems because they're not capable of listening. If we, the I, me, and mine, the ahankar that we are making ourselves to be, become more important to us than anything else in life, this will be the cause of us not being able to hear from others. Because while someone is talking to us, then our mind is racing with so many ideas because we have the idea that we're better than them. They can't teach me anything. I know everything. That's what happens to a great extent with people who first become exposed to spiritual teachings and then enter into the process called rebirth. They become a new person. They find the inspiration from God, but there is the mixture of ahankar and spiritual realization that is also very dangerous. The soul takes it upon himself then to think now, oh, I know it all, I know everything. Nobody can tell me anything. Because that same mentality is what got us into this material junction to begin with. So, if in fact we can acknowledge that this is a problem that we have in our character, then we're also realizing there has to be a way for the human being to overcome these tendencies of leaning towards. And this process that is being given by this Hare Krishna movement of chanting of God's names is one such process that will enable us to train the mind, because the mind is so conditioned. It is making decisions based on our conditioning rather than being based, and this is just the natural way the human being is made, because incorporated into the way it's designed is its own will and its own ability to choose what it wants and to create desire. Where are our desires coming from? That's the soul. That's us. We're creating desire. And the desires we create are so powerful. They put us right where we want to be. That's part of the problem. That's why we're here, in a place subject to birth, death, old age, and disease. So, if we do train these minds constantly now to realize the Supreme Person has given us direct instructions on how to conduct ourselves in such a way that every act that we perform in this world can be so beneficial that at the end of this life there is so much accumulated effort being made in the right direction spiritually that eternity. Now we will be eternally situated in that because we have proven through our lives to be able to be put into that position willingly to be used, and sometimes against our own desires. But as we train the mind to accept those things favorable to devotional service and to reject those things that are not favorable to devotional service, then our lives will be sublime. Because what will be in the mind will be that offers eternal benefit. See, people are having problems with mind. It is the thoughts of the mind that cause all of our problems. The desires we create, the things we think about, and the things we put in our mind as having great importance. And what the purport of all these purports is, we've got to see Krishna. We've got to see Krishna as the most important person for whom we are willing to submit ourselves to. And as we do that, then he will reveal to us what persons we can submit ourselves to who are submitted to him. This is a way that false ego is broken. This is the only way we're going to live our lives without living them selfishly for our own purpose, for our own design. So you might say, well, then we lose our self-will. No, but we change the desires of our heart to get that will be really satisfying for an eternity. And by the purifying of our desires, then comes the satisfying of our hearts. Because the pure desires, then, if we want Krishna, you get everything. He's all powerful. He's all loving. He's all giving. And he's doing just that for us. All these literatures, everything we've experienced in life is due to God, due to God's goodness. Everything that's here that is created is coming from his creative form. So if we are experiencing to any degree, any form of satisfaction at all, then we should be expressing appreciation. And with all the avenues of satisfaction we have to find in Krishna consciousness, every day we're having just plenteous of sumptuous foodstuffs being prepared by people who have loving devotion in their hearts for wanting to do that which is pleasing in the eyes of God. Wow. How few there are. In comparatively rationally wise, what do you say? Ratio.
Rationalize.
Percentage wise. In the world. If we compare how many people are suffering to how many people are actually experiencing the highest forms of pleasure and satisfaction that this physical form of humankind has to offer.
Not even 1%.
Yeah. It's so small a percentage of people who are actually getting the satisfaction and pleasure. With these people searching for pleasure, everything found turns out to be a little bit less than what they thought it would be. Because this world is full of imperfections. Because of its cause of being created for the souls that want to be separate from God. It's here for those souls who have wanted to experience a separateness from the eternal dwelling. And therein lies our confused state that we are in, to believe we know what is best for ourselves. And so we make our own laws. We create our own histories. We write our stories about ourselves. And unless those stories lead ultimately to the eternal, the value they have for anyone in this material world is useless. And so much work and effort and energy being spent uselessly with no eternal result. And we have the opportunity to engage in that which does produce an eternal result. The same nature as the soul. The soul is eternal. And the labor, the energy that we engage in, we can be certain is of an eternal, effective nature as well. And in this way, the being that we are comes to know itself as it is, its own qualities. Until we do surrender to the will of the Supreme Person, we don't know what kind of qualities we should develop. We don't know what kind of activities to engage in order to develop those qualities a human being is supposed to develop. We're busy. If we don't care about developing kindness, meekness, gentleness, love, compassion, we're not going to experience those very moods and experiences of consciousness. And without those, the human status, the human experience is lacking. So why we study these books is to find the completeness of the personality of God and the qualities and the characteristics of God's character, God's person, God's personality. And in seeing that, then, we know more and more. We want God to be allowed to work through us and to be the predominating force that engages us. There's a force within it, there's a consciousness within sharing this body with us, whose will it is by the truths he has spoken in the past and revealed to us through his devotees, that he wants us to go back to be with him forever and ever and ever. And he wants us to know how much he loves us, how much he cares for us, how much he has feelings of separation from us because we have left. I don't know. Krishna feeling separation from because too many souls have left. I don't know. Maybe not. Does it affect Krishna that we leave? So many more souls where he is. I don't know whether it would have to affect Krishna very much at all. But he has gone, I mean, how much more can we ask of God to have made the way to bring us back? So it is more his love for us than it is our love for him, because otherwise we'd stay here continuously. We got here by wanting to be here. And now that we know that this is separate from God's eternal dwelling, we didn't really get here by God's wanting us to leave where he was. That was our desire. So then, if desire got us here, then we simply have to purify the desires to get back and to desire the right thing. And we will prove that desire for the right thing by applying ourselves to these teachings. Taking these teachings so important that every day, an hour in one book, another hour in another book, an hour in Bhagavatam, an hour in Gita, an hour in Chaitanya Charitamrita. And then there are other preliminary study books that contain the substance of everything, that even by the recitation of them, the soul can experience the eternalness of the substance that truth is. All these precepts, even that are looked at as impersonal, when they're chanted, we come to find out that they are manifest in the person of God. So, all power, all beauty, all strength, all fame, all knowledge, all attractiveness, that's all to be found in Krishna. And then the journey in the finding, it's the glorious experience of bliss. And a realization as we read that it is by the doing of the Supreme Person that we have access to this knowledge. It's such a divine realization we can get just by the experience of absorbing how profound these truths are, which kind of defy everything that's being manifested in the material world, almost as though it's exactly opposite the way it should be. And it's described as that. The material world is like a reflection that you would see exactly opposite. If you're looking at the reflection of a pond that you see of a tree, it's having itself reflected in the fountain. It's upside down. The tree branches are in the bottom, and the fruits are on top. Yeah. I mean, the roots are on top. Yeah, the roots are on top. So this world is mixed up. Good is bad, and bad is good. Kill the cow, and make it to be the most high in the way of thinking of what is best for food. And yet it is the worst thing to do. The worst thing they can do is kill this cow. In the mode of goodness, what creature do we have on the planet born in the mode of goodness besides these cows that are a source of food for mankind that can replace every organ in his body? This cow's body is producing a food so complete in and of itself, and every part of the excrements of its body is medicinal, good for the earth, to help bring forth foodstuffs that are nourishing to the building of the body. And yet human beings see the killing of this creature as something great, as something to be done on a daily basis. How many millions of cows? How many millions of people are there in the United States now? Maybe 400 or 500 million, 500 million, almost nearing that. And we could say, practically speaking, more than 50% of them are probably indulging in the eating of the cow's body every day. And this is a total abomination. It is equated in the Bhagavatam worse than eating a dog. But in fact, if you look at the value of a human being's body, which it produces, as compared to the outcome of what a cow's body can produce, making a comparison like that, you see the cow is actually more beneficial to the furtherance of human life than human beings are. And this is exemplary in their own acts, where they're destroying one another even. And Srila Prabhupada is pointing out that the same mentality that we have towards producing food for ourselves is revealed by the suffering we bring upon ourselves, because we don't realize those creatures that we bring suffering upon have suffering to experience here. And if we are involved in that process of bringing their suffering to them without justification, then we are also going to have to suffer. And the scriptures reveal that in order for it to be corrected in a human being, it has to be experienced 7 times over. Now, this is why, see, it is justification for the laws of God to cause a human being to have to take birth 7 times for taking the life of one human being. More than 7 lives in many cases are actually affected by the death of one person. The death of one person can be the cause of thousands of people having their lives, their path that they were on, completely changed, distorted, manipulated, whatever you want to call it. And that's what's happening with the interaction of human beings, not realizing they are accumulating. When they bring harm, when you bring harm on another living entity, you are bringing harm upon yourself 7 times over. That you are going to produce this same pain you are creating for yourself in the future. This is why scriptures so mercifully give us instruction not to cause pain and suffering to others. We're supposed to love one another. And in that way, when we treat one another lovingly, we receive love in return. But we don't do it for that reason, because that's not what love is. The nature of love is that it gives of itself without expectation of anything in return. And that's the nature of our consciousness that we're being instructed to develop all throughout the activities of our day. My acts are not for my pleasure. My acts are not for me. My acts are for the pleasure of the Supreme Person. And if I can find pleasure in His eyes, then I will find satisfaction in life. From who everything is under the control of the Supreme Person. It's very difficult, actually, for our minds to conceive. But then He as well distributes the functions of human life to society in such a way that it is distributed amongst all life. So this is how not even one blade of grass moves without it having to be following the laws that have been set in place by the Supreme Personality of Godhead at the very foundation of the world. No butterfly can come out of its cocoon until the Supreme Lord has set into place those exact laws and rules for that cocoon to happen exactly at the moment it happens. Every single birth that has taken place has been done according to the laws set in place by the Supreme Person at the very foundation of this universe. And those laws, so powerful, are still being carried out exactly the same way they were then. Wow. And men sitting in congressional hearings debating about what is right and wrong have to change their laws, arguing about right and wrong. Every year they're making changes to laws they previously made as that which is perfect enough to govern humanity, they believe. They can't govern it for more than a year. They have to make changes to the very own laws they make themselves. And yet God's laws are still effective billions of years after. Trillions. The length of the universe, 311 trillion, 400 billion years. And we are 52% through. So how many trillions of years that makes this planet? I don't know if it came out all at the same time. These planets actually are being put out at different times as well. So not all of them are the same age.
No.
Are there any comments, any questions? It is time to end class. Any realizations anyone like to share?
Thank you.
Granthara Shrimadbhagavatam, ki jai, Srila Prabhupada, ki jai. Oh,